We're grateful that you've taken some time to join us for Jazz Evensong online here at Brentwood Presbyterian Church. We're located out in Burnaby, British Columbia. I'm in my little office here in where we live in North Vancouver. And of course, with the pandemic and the patience that we are taking to make sure that everyone is safe, we're not meeting face to face. And so we're doing these shorter versions, 35 minutes, 3 songs. This service is the first of 2 that focus on Christmas. And we didn't have videos of the songs that we wanted to use, but we do have audio recordings. And so we're going to try that and use those for the next couple of services. This one's by a group called Django. Cool Yule is a concert that they do on a regular basis each year with singer LJ Mounteney, who's been a big part of our work around Brentwood in terms of the jazz community. And these recordings were done 3-4 years ago, maybe. And they feature a wonderful harmonica player by the name of Keith Bennett. Now, Keith unfortunately died in 2019, and so we mourn his passing. He was just a wonderful, wonderful guy and a big part of the jazz scene in Vancouver. And so it's an honor to be able to feature Keith, to remember him, and to enjoy some of the wonderful spirit of his music. We're going to begin with their song Cool Yule. And it's about Santa Claus. Santa Claus is a big part of Christmas. But the piece that strikes me as I listen to this again is how cool it is to give. How cool it is to give. And how cool it is to receive. Right? Because this is reciprocity. This is a mutual relationship. It's giving and receiving. Santa Claus comes from St. Nicholas, a saint in the Christian tradition, who was known for giving to the poor, to the needy, to those that were less fortunate than many in that society. And I think as those of us within the Presbyterian tradition have thought through all of that, the giving also has to do with creating structures that distribute the well-being of creation, the resources, the bounty of creation, distributes those fairly and justly. And so that's a whole other dimension. How do we create the structures, the systems that distribute the gifts of God, because that's what everything we have is, a gift of God. That's certainly how we understand it. How do we distribute those fairly and equitably? How do we exercise stewardship over all of the bounty and the resources that we have been entrusted with by God, to do justice, to create peace, and to do that with kindness and humility? That's a huge piece, for me anyway, of the Christmas season and the Christmas message. The other interesting thing I found myself thinking about listening to this piece was how difficult it is for us to receive, especially to receive love. In order to receive the gift, we have to cut through our own self-denigration. We have to cut through our own sense of unworthiness to let go of that. within the Christian tradition to recognize that we are created in the image of God, that we have that dignity and worth, that is a gift from God to us to use for the stewardship and care of God's creation. And so God invites us to receive this gift freely, unconditionally. A gift, when you boil it down, is really God's gift of forgiveness and reconciliation. And within the Christian tradition, we understand that to be a gift from the Creator, through the Christ, the Creator's anointed one, Messiah, primary ambassador, through the work of the Holy Spirit. And so the spirit that I find in their version of Cool Yule really kind of gets the gut and the heart and the brain all working together with that sense of the gift of love. Gift and receiving of love. So here's Van Django, LJ Mounteney Keith Bennett with Cool Yule.
From Coney Island to the Sunset Strip, somebody's gonna make a happy trip tonight, while the moon is bright. He's gonna have a bag of crazy toys to give the grown-ups and the girls and the boys so dear. Santa comes up big. He'll come a-calling when the snow's the most, when all your cats are sleeping warm as toast. You're gonna flip when old Saint Nick plays a lick on a peppermint stick. Yeah, come flying from a higher place, fill the stockings by the fireplace, and you have a Yule that's cool. From Coney Island to the Sunset Strip, somebody's gonna make a real happy trip tonight, while the moon is bright. Behind a reindeer with a blinking nose, he's looking groovy in his same old clothes. He's a red in his souped up sled. He's on a mission and he will not shirk. Down the chimney, man, he gets to work. That Mr. C is H-O-T-E. Come on, Santa, light my Christmas tree. Yeah, yeah. He'll come a flight from a higher place, fill the stockings by the fireplace. So you have a Yule that's cool. I'm gonna tell you all about it now. Have a Yule
I should say a word about my sweatshirt today. So this is a Christmas present from the musicians who work with us, three of the musicians who work with us at Brentwood. Ben McCrae, Dan Reynolds are two of our two music directors, brilliant young jazz musicians. And then Caden Gordon. Caden and Ben produce our podcast, Curious About Church podcast, that we've started this past year. And we'll start up again in the new year. So Ben is a student at the CAP program, the CAP Jazz program, and a number of the musicians who work with us around Brentwood are students or graduates of the CAP Jazz program. Wonderful, wonderful group of faculty and students, and so I've coveted a sweatshirt like this, and so I got one for Christmas, and as you can see, I opened it early. The next piece we're going to listen to is called Django Bells. So it's their version of Jingle Bells. But it really captures the spirit of gypsy jazz in the 30s in Paris. And so this is the Van Django loves this tradition of music. Django Reinhardt, so that's where the Van Django came from. And Stefan Grappelli. It's Roma music. That's the name often used to talk about the gypsies. They're a nomadic people. Most people think that they're probably an Indo-Aryan origins, but they migrated widely. Often persecuted where they were living, then forced to move on. And in the midst of that kind of persecution and racism, systemic racism in many cases, people stigmatized as undesirable, as a criminal element, people generating fear over their presence in a community. In the midst of that, the role of music in preserving safe communities for those people, in bringing joy into the struggles of life, in the midst of persecution, has always struck me. I love this music, and just the spirit. The parallels in many ways are the spirituals from the slave populations in the States. There is folk music around the world. In many ways, my own Scottish-Irish roots, much of the Celtic music, a lot of the music that was collected and preserved by the poet Robbie Burns, were songs that were used in those communities to generate a joy and a sense of worth and a sense of value. And so, quite apart from the fun of the Jingle Bells in their version of that, I'd also love to have you think about that spirit of the music, that spirit of dignity and of worth and of the joy that can be found in community, especially this Christmas as we're experiencing community in such a different way in the context of the pandemic. So here they are, Jingle Bells.
gentlemen, we have a special treat for you now. We have the great bird Shanky on the walkers. One more time.
Jangle bells, 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 jangle bells.
Yule Ensemble do a wonderful version of I'll Be Home for Christmas, and that's what we're going to hear next in our last song for this Jazz Evensong online service. And in this wonderful gypsy jazz tradition, this song begins with a deep feel of lament and longing for home, longing for a space to be called home, a space where the love and support, the gifts given and received of forgiving and reconciling love can be experienced and enjoyed and shared and be the ground upon which we live our lives. With all of their various stress injuries, wherever we are on that spectrum of stress injuries, knowing that there is a home. And for Christians, that home is in and with God, with the Creator of the universe, who accepts us into that home like the prodigal son, no questions asked, no conditions, forgiveness freely offered, and reconciliation brought back into relationship with the whole of the family, the whole of the human race. And so for me, this song takes me deeper into that longing and that lament, especially the way they started. And then it ends with this swinging joy, that sense of being enfolded in all of these loving relationships. That sense of being freely received as you are, embraced by a forgiving and reconciling love. And the interesting thing that I'm finding more and more with the Christian community, especially the Christian community that gathers around Brentwood, is that what people are discovering is that they're accepted as they are. There's a hospitality there. But in that hospitality, they find hope and they find healing. And that hope and healing creates an energy within which they can grow, within which they can change. And I think that's what Christmas is all about. God affirming that God is with us. Fear not, I am with you. I'll be home for Christmas. And I trust your Christmases will find, wherever you may be, whatever circumstances you may find yourself in, that you will sense and find some of that homeness in this music, and know that you are in our prayers for finding that as well. I'll be home for Christmas. Thanks again to LJ Mounteney and Django for letting us use these audio clips of their cool Yule recordings, and special tribute and appreciation for Keith Bennett as part of that. And I'm glad we were able to use the audio tracks that Keith was on. And let us know how the audio track version of Jazz Evensong worked for you. If it worked well, then we'll do it some other times, because there's material that we'd like to use that's only available on audio rather than visual. We'll continue to use visual most of the time. Howard Thurman is a civil rights activist, a theologian, a professor of theology, profound influence on Martin Luther King Jr., kind of mystic as well, a modern mystic as well. Many people would see him that way. And so I wanted to use his prayer poem called The Mood of Christmas for our prayer for this service. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flocks, then the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among people, and to make music in the soul. Thanks again for being with us. Take care, and God bless.